If a woman genuinely loves you, you won't need to decode mixed signals. Confusion only appears when investment is uneven. Many men stay stuck because the relationship feels almost right. There's chemistry. There's closeness. There's just enough affection to keep hope alive, while clarity never arrives. And hope is expensive when it replaces evidence. Here's what most men miss. Love doesn't announce itself loudly. It proves itself quietly through repeatable behavior. There are 7 things women do when they genuinely love you. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but as a pattern. This isn't about becoming guarded. It's about becoming precise. Because precision is what keeps you from mistaking attention for commitment and wasting time you'll never get back. Number 1. She lets you into her world. When a woman genuinely loves you, she doesn't keep you in a separate compartment of her life. She doesn't date you in isolation. She integrates you fully, naturally, without hesitation. Real love is not shy. It's not evasive. And it doesn't need to hide. A woman who truly loves a man wants him seen, not as a trophy, but as a part of her reality. You meet her friends. You're mentioned in conversations when you're not there. You exist in her real, offline life, not just in private moments behind closed doors. Because love isn't something she tucks away. It's something she stands in. This is where many men confuse a private relationship with being quietly hidden. A private relationship still has presence. It still has acknowledgement. It simply has boundaries. Being hidden, on the other hand, feels different. You never quite cross into her real circle. There's always a reason, always a delay, always a story about timing, privacy, or how she just likes to keep things separate. Pay attention to that discomfort you feel when weeks turn into months and nothing changes. If she loves you, she doesn't protect her world from you. She opens it to you. Think about the subtle scenarios men often dismiss. You're never invited to gatherings. Her friends know of you, but don't really know you. Family events come and go, and you're conveniently absent from all of them. You exist in her phone, in her bed, in her downtime, but not in her life. That's not coincidence. That's containment. And here's the uncomfortable truth most men avoid. When a woman keeps you hidden, she's usually protecting something. Sometimes it's another relationship. Sometimes it's an image. Sometimes it's an option she hasn't decided to let go of yet. Whatever it is, secrecy is rarely about privacy. It's about control. A woman who loves you doesn't want ambiguity around your place. She wants clarity. She wants alignment between how she feels and how she lives, so she introduces you. Casually, confidently, without rehearsed explanations. This doesn't mean she posts you everywhere or forces intimacy before it's earned. It means she doesn't act like your presence is a liability. You're not something she has to explain away. And no, this isn't about forcing access or demanding proof. It's about observing behavior. Love doesn't require ultimatums. It reveals itself through inclusion. If you constantly feel like you're on the outside of her real life, that feeling isn't paranoia. It's information. Because a woman who genuinely loves you doesn't keep you in the shadows while she lives in the light. She stands with you where her life actually happens. Number 2, she makes sacrifices for your happiness. When a woman genuinely loves you, compromise doesn't feel like a negotiation tactic. It feels intentional, voluntary, grounded in choice, not pressure. This is where many men misunderstand what sacrifice actually means. Real sacrifice isn't dramatic. It's not self-erasing. And it's definitely not about suffering in silence. It's about adjustment. The quiet, conscious willingness to bend when bending strengthens the bond rather than weakens the self. A woman who loves you doesn't insist that everything must orbit her preferences. She doesn't frame every disagreement as a threat to her identity. Instead, she asks herself a different question. How do we make this work without either of us losing ourselves? That mindset matters, because there's a big difference between sacrifice and compliance. Compliance is resentment waiting to surface. Sacrifice is an investment made with clear eyes. One drains the relationship, the other stabilizes it. You'll notice this in everyday moments. She adjusts her schedule to spend time with you, not out of obligation, but because your presence matters. She considers your needs without keeping score. She's willing to meet you halfway, even when it's inconvenient, because the relationship itself has value to her. This is not people-pleasing. People-pleasing seeks approval. Love seeks alignment. And here's the line most men need to hear clearly. If everything always has to go her way, you're not in a relationship. You're in a convenience contract. Love doesn't demand that one person constantly yield while the other remains unchanged. That dynamic isn't romantic. It's extractive. Over time, it teaches one partner to take and the other to tolerate. A woman who genuinely loves you understands that happiness isn't a zero-sum game. Your comfort doesn't threaten hers. Your needs don't diminish her worth. So she adjusts, not because she's afraid of losing you, but because she values what you're building together. Of course, everyone has boundaries. Everyone has non-negotiables. Love doesn't erase those. But it does soften rigidity. It creates flexibility where ego used to live. Pay attention to how often compromise only flows in one direction. Pay attention to whether your needs are treated as valid or inconvenient. These patterns reveal more than words ever will. Because when a woman loves you, she doesn't just ask what makes her happy. She asks what keeps the relationship healthy, and she's willing to act on the answer. Number 3, she cares about the people who matter to you. When a woman genuinely loves you, her emotional world doesn't stop at herself. Love expands her field of concern. It widens her lens. This is one of the quietest signals of real love, and one of the most telling. A woman who loves you starts paying attention to what affects you, even when it doesn't directly affect her. Your worries don't register as background noise. Your family isn't treated like an inconvenience. The things that weigh on you matter because you matter. This doesn't mean she inserts herself into every detail of your life. It means she doesn't emotionally disconnect from the parts of your world that shaped you. You notice it in small ways. She asks about your parents and actually listens to the answer. She remembers when someone close to you is struggling. She checks in, not because she has to, but because your emotional state has relevance to her. That's not politeness. That's attachment. When love is real, concern becomes shared. Your stress doesn't exist in isolation. Your challenges don't feel invisible. There's an unspoken understanding that what impacts you impacts the relationship. Now compare that to a woman who remains emotionally self-contained. Your family problems are met with indifference. Your concerns are acknowledged once, then forgotten. Conversations always circle back to her world, her needs, her emotions. That's not emotional independence. That's emotional separation. And over time, that separation turns into loneliness, even when you're technically not alone. A woman who only cares about her own sphere doesn't suddenly become relational after commitment. Patterns don't reverse themselves with time. They deepen. This is why it matters to observe where her empathy naturally goes. Love doesn't have to be instructed to care. It responds on its own. If she loves you, she doesn't see your world as competition. She doesn't resent the people who matter to you. She understands that loving you means respecting the ecosystem around you. Because love isn't just about how she feels when she's with you. It's about how she shows up for the things that shape you, especially when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or not about her. If she loves you, your world starts to matter. Number 4, she accepts the rhythm of your life. Every man has a rhythm, a way he moves through his days, his habits, his priorities, his pace. And when a woman genuinely loves you, she doesn't try to overwrite that rhythm, she learns it. This is where love separates itself from control. Love doesn't arrive with a blueprint for how you should live. It arrives with curiosity. A willingness to understand how your life already works, and where there's room to meet in the middle. You see it in the practical details. How you spend your mornings, how you wind down at night, how you balance work, rest, ambition, and solitude. A woman who loves you doesn't demand that you abandon these patterns to prove devotion. She looks for ways to synchronize without erasing who you are. That synchronization is intentional. Sometimes she adjusts her schedule. Sometimes you adjust yours. The point isn't symmetry, it's harmony. Two people moving in a way that allows both to function, not one person constantly accommodating the other. Contrast that with a woman who treats your rhythm as a problem to be fixed. Your habits are criticized. Your routines are dismissed. Your pace is labeled wrong, selfish, or inconvenient. Slowly, pressure replaces partnership. That's not love. That's domination disguised as concern. A woman who genuinely loves you understands that a relationship isn't built by forcing alignment, but by discovering it. She doesn't compete with your life. She integrates into it while making room for you to integrate into hers. And this matters because over time, rhythm becomes lifestyle. Lifestyle becomes identity. If your relationship constantly clashes with how you live, tension doesn't fade, it accumulates. Real love reduces friction. It doesn't manufacture it. When a woman loves you, she doesn't need to control your time to feel secure. She trusts the connection enough to let your life breathe. That trust shows up in flexibility, patience, and a shared sense of flow. Because love isn't about reshaping someone to fit your preferences. It's about finding a cadence where both of you can thrive without losing yourselves in the process. Number 5. She is proud of your accomplishments. One of the most revealing moments in a relationship is not when a man is struggling, but when he starts to rise. Because not every woman is comfortable with male progress. A woman who genuinely loves you doesn't feel threatened by your growth. She doesn't quietly compete with it. She doesn't minimize it or change the subject when you succeed. Instead, she takes pride in what you build, because your wins don't diminish her. They strengthen the bond. Real admiration is unmistakable. She speaks positively about your efforts when you're not in the room. She encourages you to aim higher instead of subtly pulling you back down to where she feels safe. Your ambition doesn't create tension. It creates alignment. This is where many men get confused. A woman can stay with you while silently resenting your progress. She can enjoy the benefits of your success while emotionally distancing herself from the man who earned it. That's not love. That's tolerance mixed with insecurity. Pay attention to how she reacts when you move forward. Does she celebrate the effort, or does she question the cost? Does she support the vision, or does she frame your growth as selfish? These reactions reveal far more than affection ever will. A woman who loves you doesn't see your success as competition. She doesn't need to level the playing field to feel equal. Her sense of worth isn't threatened by your momentum, because love doesn't require you to stay small. Silent resentment is subtle, but it's corrosive. It shows up as passive comments, backhanded compliments, a lack of enthusiasm when good things happen to you. Over time, it creates an emotional ceiling, one you're expected not to break. And that ceiling will eventually cost you either your ambition or the relationship. A woman who genuinely loves you wants to see you win, not so she can claim credit, but because your fulfillment matters to her. She understands that a man who is moving forward is not leaving her behind. He's inviting her into a stronger future. If your success makes her uncomfortable, her love was never secure. Number 6, she fights for the relationship as a unit. When a woman genuinely loves you, she doesn't treat the relationship as a side project that exists only when it's convenient. She protects it. She invests in it. She thinks in terms of us, not just me. This is where love reveals its backbone. A woman who loves you doesn't disappear when things require effort. She doesn't emotionally check out the moment compromise becomes uncomfortable. Instead, she looks for ways to strengthen the structure you're building together, because the relationship itself has value to her. You see it in how decisions are made. She considers the impact on both of you. She doesn't default to self-interest and call it independence. Her choices reflect awareness that she's part of something larger than her immediate desires. That doesn't mean she erases herself. Love is not self-abandonment. But it does mean she's willing to adjust priorities when the health of the relationship is at stake. Contrast that with a woman who always chooses herself first and frames that pattern as empowerment. Every plan must accommodate her needs. Every inconvenience is treated as a burden. Every sacrifice is expected from you, never from her. That's not strength, that's extraction. A woman who loves you understands that long-term connection requires maintenance. She seeks shared activities. She leans into experiences that build closeness rather than constantly pursuing separation under the banner of freedom. Freedom without consideration is not love. It's detachment. Notice whether she frames challenges as something you solve together or something you need to fix alone. Notice whether conflict leads to collaboration or withdrawal. These responses are not accidental. They're expressions of where her loyalty truly lies. Love shows up when she defends the relationship, even when no one is watching. When she speaks well of it. When she chooses behaviors that protect trust rather than test it. Because when a woman genuinely loves you, she doesn't treat the relationship as optional. She treats it as something worth fighting for, not against you, but alongside you. Number 7, she listens with real attention. This is the most subtle sign of all, and the easiest one to fake in short bursts. Because listening isn't about silence, it's about presence. A woman who genuinely loves you doesn't just wait for her turn to speak. She absorbs what you say. She remembers it. And more importantly, she adjusts her behavior based on it. That's how you know the attention is real. Many women appear to listen. They nod. They respond. They offer words of reassurance. But pay close attention to what happens after the conversation ends. Does anything change? Or do the same patterns repeat as if the conversation never happened? Real listening leaves fingerprints. When a woman loves you, she tracks your inner world. She remembers what stresses you out. She recalls what matters to you without needing reminders. She doesn't dismiss your concerns as overreactions or inconvenience. Even when she disagrees, she acknowledges the weight of what you're saying. That kind of attention requires emotional investment. Performative empathy, on the other hand, is shallow. It sounds supportive in the moment, but disappears under pressure. It exists to keep the peace, not to build understanding. And over time, it creates a strange form of loneliness. Being heard without being understood. A woman who genuinely loves you doesn't use your vulnerability against you. She doesn't store it as ammunition for future arguments. She treats what you share as something entrusted to her, not something to be managed or minimized. This is where all the previous signs quietly converge. A woman won't listen deeply if she doesn't respect your place in her life. She won't adjust if she doesn't value the relationship. And she won't remember if she isn't emotionally invested. That's why this sign rarely exists on its own. Notice whether she asks follow-up questions without being prompted. Notice whether she connects dots between conversations weeks apart. Notice whether your concerns influence decisions instead of being acknowledged and ignored. Because attention is not passive. It's active. It requires effort, and effort reveals priority. A woman who listens to you isn't just being polite. She's making room for you inside her inner world. She's allowing your thoughts, your worries, your perspective to matter alongside her own. And that is one of the clearest indicators of genuine love. When you step back and look at these 7 behaviors together, one thing becomes clear. They are not a checklist meant to comfort you. They are not isolated moments you cherry-pick to justify staying. They are a pattern. Real love doesn't show up once and disappear. It doesn't appear when it's convenient and vanish when it's uncomfortable. When a woman genuinely loves you, these behaviors start to stack. They reinforce each other. They form consistency over time. One sign alone means nothing. Two signs can still be coincidence. But when you see the same alignment again and again, in how she includes you, how she adjusts, how she cares, how she supports, how she protects the relationship, and how she listens, that's no longer chance. That's choice. And here's the most important part. You don't need to interrogate her. You don't need to demand reassurance. You don't need to guess. You just need to observe correctly. Men lose power in relationships when they override what they see in favor of what they hope. When they explain away patterns instead of trusting them. When they stay loyal to potential instead of reality. You don't have to do that anymore. If this video made you pause, if it made you quietly reevaluate a relationship you're in right now, that awareness matters. That's where clarity begins. So if you want to keep learning how to read women without resentment, without fantasy, and without losing yourself in the process, make sure you subscribe. And if you recognize signs you once ignored, drop a comment. Share this with a man who's emotionally invested, but unsure if he's truly chosen. Because real love doesn't keep you guessing. It leaves evidence.